Welcome back, deep divers. Today, we're going deep, really deep, into the concept of deep work.
And leading our exploration is the work of Dr. Cal Newport.
A true pioneer in understanding focus and productivity in our, well,
Distracted world.
exactly.
And in this deep dive, we'll unpack the core principles of deep work, see how it stacks up against what Newport calls shallow work, and really dig into
The high stakes.
exactly the high stakes of mastering this, I would say, essential skill in today's world.
So, to set the stage,
Yeah.
what exactly is deep work, and why should our listeners care?
Well, deep work, as Newport defines it, is about those professional activities that we perform in a state of distraction-free concentration,
Okay.
really pushing our cognitive capabilities to their limit. And the beauty of this, it's in these moments that we create new value, improve our skills, and do work that's hard to replicate.
So we're talking about those times when we're laser-focused,
Absolutely.
fully immersed in a challenging task.
Yes.
And almost like time just melts away.
You emerge feeling both exhausted and exhilarated, right?
I know that feeling well. But then there's the flip side, shallow work.
Right, shallow work. And this is where things get interesting because it often masquerades as productive. You know, you're busy, you're checking things off your list.
Oh yeah, emails, meetings, endless scrolling. We've all been there.
But these activities, they fragment our attention, chipping away at our ability to truly focus deeply.
It's like the difference between, I don't know, writing a captivating novel
Yes.
versus, endlessly fiddling with the font in a presentation.
Perfect analogy. One requires deep immersion, creative flow that sustain mental effort, while the other keeps us busy but ultimately doesn't yield the same valuable results.
And this is where the stakes come in.
Right, because in our hyper-competitive world, especially in fields like tech, entrepreneurship, even the arts, being able to consistently do deep work is becoming less of an option and more of a necessity.
I mean, think about it. Designing a groundbreaking app, building a successful startup, or crafting a symphony that moves people.
All of that requires these extended periods of focused concentration, free from the distractions that bombard us constantly.
Which makes you wonder, how much incredible potential, how many groundbreaking ideas are we losing to the constant pings and notifications?
It's a question worth pondering, and it really highlights the insidious nature of what we call the attention economy. We're constantly being pulled in a million directions. Information overload, notifications, demands on our attention.
And there's a cost.
There is. That cost is our ability to focus deeply. And what's even more fascinating, research shows that this constant task switching leaves behind something called attention residue.
Attention residue?
A cognitive after effect that makes it harder to focus even when we return to the original task. It's like a part of us is still stuck on that previous task.
Yeah, so that feeling of mental fog after hours spent juggling emails, social media, and work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like trying to run a marathon after pulling an all-nighter, you're just not operating at your best.
So how do we combat this attention residue? How do we train our minds for deep work?
Deliberate practice is key.
So it's not just about willpower. It's about approaching deep work like a skill we can develop.
Exactly. It's about pushing beyond our comfort zones, focusing intently, and using feedback to identify where we can improve, like learning an instrument or mastering a new language.
It takes time, effort, and a willingness to embrace the entire process.
Absolutely. It's interesting because deliberate practice isn't about like mindlessly repeating the same task over and over.
Right.
It's really about focused attention on a specific skill and
To yourself.
pushing yourself exactly beyond your comfort zone, constantly seeking feedback to identify those areas where you can improve.
Like, it reminds me of training for a marathon, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't just run the same route every day at the same pace.
Exactly.
You got to vary those workouts, challenge yourself, track that progress.
That's a perfect analogy. And Newport actually offers these different philosophies for integrating deep work into your life. Each one's kind of tailored to different needs and lifestyles.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Not at all.
You can kind of choose a strategy that aligns with, your work style, your personality, those kinds of things.
Precisely.
So tell me about these deep work philosophies.
Well, one approach is what he calls the monastic philosophy.
Okay.
And think of, writers, researchers, artists, people who isolate themselves for extended periods,
Really disconnect.
disconnect to fully immerse themselves in their craft. Now, this requires a lot of control over your schedule and environment. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, I can't imagine disappearing to a secluded cabin for weeks on end.
Right.
My inbox would be a nightmare.
Exactly. But there are elements of this that we can adapt,
Yeah.
right? Instead of disappearing completely, what if we carved out dedicated blocks of time each week, mini retreats where we truly disconnect and
Like
focus?
building a deep work sanctuary right in our own homes.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that leads us to another philosophy, the bimodal philosophy. This one alternates between intense deep work and periods of more, open collaborative work.
So kind of like switching between two modes of operating.
Exactly. Imagine dedicating, say, specific days or even weeks to deep dives where you're completely unavailable. No meetings, no emails.
And then you reemerge and engage with the world.
Precisely. This could be effective for folks who need to balance individual creative work with team projects or client interactions.
And probably great for managing energy, preventing burnout, giving yourself permission to recharge.
Absolutely. But then there's the rhythmic philosophy for those who crave more consistency.
But
It's about establishing a routine with regular deep work sessions built in, like going to the gym. You set aside a specific time, make it non-negotiable.
yeah, building that habit, that rhythm, even just an hour each morning could make a difference.
Absolutely. Small, consistent efforts over time. And for those who thrive on spontaneity, there's the journalistic philosophy.
Okay, this sounds interesting. Who's using the journalistic philosophy?
So think journalists, writers, entrepreneurs, anyone who needs to produce high-quality work on tight deadlines,
Under pressure.
often in unpredictable environments.
Yeah. So being able to just switch into that deep focus mode on demand.
Exactly. It requires mental agility, compartmentalization. Not easy, but definitely a skill you can develop.
Wow, these deep work philosophies offer such a great framework. But let's be real, sticking to them can be tough.
Oh, for sure.
Life throws curveballs, right?
Mhm.
Distractions are everywhere.
Right. So you need to be proactive
Yeah.
about protecting that deep work time.
So maybe difficult conversations about needing those focus periods,
Yeah,
setting boundaries, saying no to things.
exactly. Establishing what you might call a deep work policy for yourself.
Oh, I like that.
Creating a culture of deep work. It starts with awareness, talking to your team, leading by example.
Imagine a workplace where deep work is not just valued, but encouraged. No more endless meetings.
That's the dream.
Dedicated time to focus. But one of the biggest obstacles is, the constant distractions, especially from technology.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a daily battle.
It is. And Newport has some radical suggestions, like minimizing social media use, even deleting certain apps,
What?
and being discerning about the information we consume. Focus on quality over quantity.
Being more mindful about how we spend our time and attention.
Yeah.
We have a finite amount.
Exactly.
And social media, it's a powerful tool, but it's a double-edged sword.
It is. The key is to use it with purpose.
Okay.
Decide in advance how you'll use it, set time limits, stick to them, and when it's time for deep work, eliminate it as a distraction. Phone on airplane mode, notifications silenced, social media tabs closed.
Create that distraction-free zone.
Yeah,
But it's not just about technology, right? Our physical environment matters too.
absolutely. A space conducive to focus, free from clutter.
Yeah, even small changes like tidying up, adding a plant, adjusting the lighting.
All those things make a difference. And for open plan offices, noise-canceling headphones can be a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
Create that auditory isolation, maybe even a visual barrier.
Right, like a well-placed plant or something.
Exactly. Take control of your environment as much as possible.
We've covered scheduling, environment, technology. But there's one element we often overlook. Rest.
Oh, so important. Rest and recovery are crucial, just like with physical training.
It seems counterintuitive, but taking those breaks, letting
Yeah.
our minds wander, it can actually enhance our focus later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about scrolling through your phone during breaks.
No.
True disengagement.
Right, walks in nature, listening to music, reading, meditating.
Replenishing those mental reserves.
I read a study recently about how people who engage in calming activities before bed have better focus the next day.
It makes sense, setting ourselves up for success by prioritizing rest.
It's all connected, taking care of ourselves so we can show up for deep work.
Exactly. But even with all the right tools and techniques, there's that pesky thing called procrastination.
Oh, yeah.
That feeling of resistance.
It can be so powerful. It really does feel like that sometimes. Like you're standing at the bottom of this huge mountain, you're excited about the view from the top, but intimidated by the climb to get there. So how do we overcome that feeling of procrastination when it comes to deep work, especially when the task just seems so daunting?
One of the most effective strategies is to break it down, right? Take that large task and divide it into smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay. Yeah.
So instead of being overwhelmed by the thought of writing an entire book, focus on just one chapter. maybe even just one page at a time.
It's a classic one step at a time approach.
Exactly. And by focusing on those smaller milestones, we build momentum, a sense of accomplishment. And gradually, we chip away at that bigger task.
It makes it less intimidating.
It does. And often, the hardest part is simply getting started, overcoming that initial inertia. And once we do, the task often feels less daunting than we imagined.
There's something about that first step, about overcoming that initial resistance.
Absolutely.
It's almost like, I don't know, pushing a heavy boulder. It takes a lot of effort to get it moving, but once it gains momentum, it's easier to keep it rolling.
Love that analogy. And sometimes in that process, we might even find ourselves entering a flow state where the work feels effortless and enjoyable.
Flow state, that elusive state of peak performance and creativity that we all crave.
It's like being in the zone, operating at our full potential and feeling this deep sense of satisfaction in the process.
And deep work can be the path to that.
It can. By creating the conditions for deep focus, by eliminating those distractions, approaching our work with intention and mindfulness, we increase our chances of getting there.
It's funny how we often seek flow state in our leisure activities, like sports or music,
Yeah.
but we can also experience it in our work.
Absolutely. It's about bringing that same level of focus, that same engagement and passion to our professional lives.
And then work becomes more than just work.
Exactly. It becomes a source of meaning, purpose, even fulfillment.
This is truly inspiring. But let's be real, we're not going to be in a flow state every day. There will be days when our motivation is low, distractions are strong, and deep work feels more like a chore.
You're absolutely right. So how do we navigate those moments and stay committed?
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is to be kind to ourselves. We're all going to have off days.
We're human.
Exactly. We're
Yeah.
human. Acknowledge those feelings without judgment, remembering that consistency, not perfection, is key.
Giving ourselves permission to have those off days and just try again tomorrow.
Absolutely. And on those tough days, try to identify the root cause of your resistance. Are you feeling overwhelmed, tired, stressed, maybe even uninspired?
So if I'm overwhelmed, maybe break a large task into smaller steps. If I'm tired, prioritize rest. If I'm uninspired, maybe reconnect with my why.
All excellent strategies. And sometimes a simple change of environment can help. If you're stuck at your desk, work from a coffee shop, go for a walk, even move to a different room.
Get a fresh perspective.
Exactly.
Right.
And if you're still struggling, don't hesitate to reach out for support. Talk to a colleague, a friend, a mentor.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in this.
We're not. We all face these challenges with deep work, but with persistence, self-compassion, and a willingness to experiment, we can cultivate this skill and experience its benefits.
This has been such an insightful exploration of deep work. But as we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
I love it.
Choose one strategy we discussed today and actually commit to implementing it.
Even a small change.
Schedule a daily deep work session, create a distraction-free workspace, take a mindful break, start small, be consistent.
And watch as deep work transforms not just your work, but your life.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, keep pushing those boundaries.
And we'll see you next time, ready to dive into another fascinating topic.
See you then.